Thanks for staying with the NCN 6 o'clock news. Government has intervened to ensure that the water accumulated in the city is drained as early as possible. Today, Hydraulics Minister Robeson Ben and other officials of his ministry visited 2 pumps that are in operation to drain the city of the excess water. Here's more.
The drainage system in the city has been built with a capacity of only 2 inches of rain, but officials have confirmed that there has been some 3 inches of rainfall over the last 6 hours, so many parts of the city was inevitably submerged up to late this afternoon. And the situation may be worsened as continued heavy rains and intermittent thunderstorms are expected to continue this evening and tomorrow. But all available pumps are in operation and city residents are being urged to take the necessary precautions.
Rain is expected to continue this evening and tomorrow morning by the latest forecasts and models. So we have to be vigilant and try to optimize the situation as best as we can.
The minister and a team of officials, including Chief Engineer Walter Willis, visited several pumps and sluices earlier today to examine the situation. Minister Ben explained that sluice doors were shut early in the day because of the spring tide, but were to be opened around 17:30 hours after the tide would have gone down. Though the city drainage is the responsibility of the Georgetown municipality, government is committing to working with them to ensure that water proceeds soon enough.
What we can do is to try to support the efforts of the City Council where we can, in as far as we know them. And the Prime Minister has called for a meeting tomorrow where we will review the current situation. I understood that they said some weeks ago that they were ready, and then I don't know if they were saying yesterday that they were about ready. But in any event, we will support them where we can to ensure that the city could be drained as quickly as possible.
The hydraulics minister said the city fence districts were asked to submit reports on the flood, while the engineers are to examine the entire situation closer. In the meantime, excessive rainfall has also been reported at Baibu and Grasshook in the Mahaica Creek, and the minister says the situation is being closely monitored by engineers and other drainage and irrigation officials. Reporting for the NCN 6 o'clock news, I am Janelle Prasad.
The Internet Interest Holders Group has moved to hold a public discourse on GT&T's recent block of voice communications. Among the issues up for discussion are the freedom of the Internet, the Yapjack's Internet voice communications, and implications on Internet cafes and their employees. The representative body was formed following an announcement by the Guyana Revenue Authority to pursue and prosecute service providers who offer illegal services via the Internet. The group warns that blocking Internet calls could affect over 7,000 persons and has called on government to make the necessary adjustments so that there can be stability in the sector. However, the GRA has argued that such illegal activities are having a severe impact on the national revenue collection. GT&T has also stated that such operations have been affecting the quality of its international calls. The Guyana Human Rights Association co-president Mike McCormack says civil society should remember its obligation to promoting the implementation of the Universal Human Rights Declaration. Mr. McCormack made these statements during a student panel discussion to mark the observance of International Human Rights Day. Onika Jones has details.
United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Navi Pillay, says millions of people worldwide are still unaware that they have rights that they can demand. She says the global financial crisis compounds the dire situation faced by the poorest people around the world, adding that poverty is both the cause and a result of human rights violation. And Guyana Human Rights Association co-president Mike McCormack says civil society must promote the implementation of the UN Declaration on Human Rights. He made special emphasis on torture.
It's very important that torture always be condemned, otherwise it finds its way into becoming an everyday thing. At the moment, in Guyana, there are only isolated incidents. It's not a routine practice.
The Universal Declaration on Human Rights states that everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security, and that all, regardless of race, gender, color, sex, language, religion, or political opinion, are equal before the law. To mark the 60th anniversary of the Human Rights Declaration, the Guyana Human Rights Association held a panel discussion where students expressed their views.
If a child is suppressed and not allowed to express his or her opinions, he or she will initially begin to feel that as a person, I have no value because what I say doesn't matter, because nobody listens or cares. So why should I listen or care? And if this is how all children feel and think, because they're not allowed to share their opinions or have an input into decisions that affect them as individuals, the future of our world, our country, will be sad and depressed.
Conclusion, freedom of expression helps an individual to build self-confidence, establish good relationship among peers and elderly, and acquire additional knowledge and life skills that will be useful to them in the future.
I strongly believe that Article 13, pertaining to the right of children to express themselves freely, is important to children and youths. Why? For various reasons. Firstly, children are the future leaders and they should be free to express themselves. If they can't express themselves freely at a young age without feeling intimidated, then what kind of leaders will they make? Laissez-faire perhaps, just laid back and going with the flow.
In the meantime, UN officials are advocating for the right to water be added to the UN Declaration or be enshrined in a separate covenant. The officials say waterborne diseases are the leading cause of death for children, and in every single case, if their parents could afford clean water, they would not have to die. Guyana recognizes the Universal Declaration on Human Rights and has since instituted a number of legislative measures, which includes constitutional amendments to facilitate the creation of an Ethnic Relations Commission and the Prevention of Discrimination Act 1997. Onika Jones, the 6 O'Clock News.
Officials from across Guyana are meeting to review the Amerindian Act in a bid to make it more comprehensive. This meeting was held at the Institute of Foreign Services, where Tushao Ovid Williams encouraged the gathering to work hard in making the act beneficial to all Guyanese. Giselle Archibald has the details.
Over the past years, Amerindian communities have been expressing how difficult it was to share with other Amerindian communities the Amerindian Act, as many do not understand. Today, through the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs, a meeting was held with Tushao to review the guide and have it more comprehensible.
This guide, and before it goes out into the communities, we would like to have you to have a review and have discussion on it to see if you can have any additions, any recommendations before it is implemented.
Overview of the meeting, Ms. Melinda Janke compared Amerindians in Guyana to those in Brazil and complimented government for its efforts to ensure Amerindians have land rights.
Amerindian communities in Brazil, for example, do not own their land. The state owns it, the state sets aside reserves, and the state makes all decisions. That is not the case in Guyana, where communities own the land, communities decide what happens on the resources on those lands, and the communities have enforcement powers. So we need to understand that the situation in Guyana is different, and I think it's probably unique.
Ms. Janke stated that the two-day meeting will try to further develop the Act so that persons will be better able to understand and apply in their respective communities.
Our task is to develop a guide that is useful, practical, so that the villages and communities, but also all Guyanese, can understand the Act, apply the Act, and comply with the Act.
The meeting continues tomorrow with a workshop and further deliberations on the Act. Also in attendance were members of the Guyana Geology and Mines and Forestry Commission. Amerindians are offered some protection for mining in the law, as small-scale mining is prohibited in areas used by Amerindians. But the GGMC interprets this provision in a very limited way, as only applying to land titles. After protests by Amerindians, the government adopted a policy requiring large-scale companies to consult with Amerindians when prospecting on Amerindian land titles. Reported for the NCN 6 O'Clock News, I am Giselle Archibald.